Good.
Yep.
Call in order the Larkspur Library Board meeting. Today is May 12th, 2025, 6:04 p.m. Gonna do a quick roll call. Andy Ravel, chair here. Jeff Gunderson here.
Amin Butterman here.
Yep.
Jonathan Chambroom here.
Yep. And the only missing is Anjali. Move on to agenda number 2, the approval of consent calendar. Does someone want to make a motion to approve?
I move to make a motion to approve the calendar.
Someone want to second that?
I can second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Moving on to agenda item number 3, public comment. Is there anyone who would like to make a public comment?
You could introduce yourself if you want, if you feel comfortable while you're here, but we don't have to either, but it's a good time.
We met at the Touch Trucks event, and I'm planning to submit my application for one of the board roles. And I will not be here on the 21st when you all are doing the interviews, because I'm in Chicago for work, so thought I'd stop by and say hello this evening and also get a feel for what this is all about. So I'm Elizabeth Fastici. I'm a resident of Larkspur. I've been about 7 years. I have a 3-year-old, very active user of the library. And we've been really excited to watch project, obviously, that's underway around the corner. We live in the Heather Gardens neighborhood back here, so and sometimes walk see where the new project is going on. And excited to get involved. I was chatting with a friend about how I want to get more involved locally. I've served on other boards and other places I've lived, and also on boards as a professional. And she forwarded the notice to me about this some seat coming open here. So I found out about it. I'm excited to throw my hat in the ring.
We have 3 other Heather Gardens.
Oh, okay, nice. I'm on Chanticleer.
Oh, cool. We're both on Heather Way.
William Ave,
Okay.
between Chanticleer and Garden.
Okay. Great.
Such a lovely neighborhood.
Yeah.
Walking distance.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, sure. I'm Gretchen. I'm on West Baltimore, so on the other side
Yeah.
of Magnolia. But I also saw the notice, and I just wanted to come and find out a little more about what the board does, and to be a little more involved in our town. I have 3 teenage boys, and we are all busy library users. I'm a former English teacher. We lived in New York for many years, and now I'm subbing at St. Pat's. And when I stopped by and I met Damon a week or 2 ago when I was picking up a book, and just happened to ask about the board, and he invited me here.
Awesome.
Welcome.
Any other public comment? All right, we'll move on to board members' reports and comments. I guess I should probably start, given the fact that we have a couple people here for open position. I am rolling off, I think pretty soon here, and I've decided just that kind of we need another voice, and I'm focused on a lot of other things with my kids, and I've had a pretty good and long run, and so yeah, not gonna be up for another term. So even though I was just recently elected the chair, I didn't realize, I guess, that my term was so close to being over.
And that only speaks to you everlasting enthusiasm
Yeah,
for the library and what
exactly.
we do. And I want to thank you
yes.
because you are truly easy to work with, and always enthusiastic. Always,
Appreciate that.
always. Yeah. I will stop at your house and
Fill me in.
and fill you in
Yeah.
so that I get some of that enthusiasm.
No, I appreciate it. It's been, I mean, a great, great group to work with. Damon's doing a wonderful job, and I think the momentum from all of our various support groups is yeah, it's pretty amazing. So nice to see all the progress.
And when is your term up?
I'm not really sure.
June 30th, technically.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you will be missed.
Yeah.
But you'll stay with us.
All right. Any other board member
How
reports?
long have you served on this?
How long are the
Eight-
term?
8 years.
8 years, yeah.
I think 17 you started.
So two terms. The term is not 8 years. The one
Yeah,
that
what,
you-
what, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, 8 years. Sounds about right.
Yeah, 2 terms is good. First term you learn, the second term you get things going.
Yeah. All right, other board members' reports or comments?
Well, I went to the touch truck, and I really want to thank you, all of you, both of you, for an unbelievable event. It was well attended, extremely well ordered. And I was at the exit and entrance, and everybody who came in was eager to come in, and everybody who left was delighted to have been at that event. And really thanked us for doing it, and asked if we were gonna have another one next year. So it was, thank you very much.
That's great. Anything else? All right, we'll move to agenda item number 5, the director's oral report.
I would like to suggest as director that maybe we adjust the agenda and, move up the status reports from groups, if that's
Yeah.
someone.
Sounds good. We're gonna move on to agenda number,
Didn't I have to vote?
I think someone has to
vote on
second it or make a motion.
Motion to switch the order and jump to the status report.
Second,
all in favor.
aye.
All right, we're gonna move on then to agenda item number 7, the status reports and reports from library support groups. Looks like we have a couple in attendance, and why don't we keep going with the touch truck and turn it over to you.
I'm Diana St. James, and I'm president of Friends of the Library. And back on May 4th, we hosted the Touch Trucks event. This was our 3rd year to do that. And I think we all, as the workers there, had a similar experience to the attendees, that the 3rd time was the charm. I feel like it went very smoothly. In the past, the ticket price had been $5 per person. And we had last year 3,500 people come, which was quite a bit beyond what we felt was a comfortable capacity for the event. So this year we raised the ticket prices, with fingers crossed, to $25 per person, and even went so far as to offer a VIP access. And we ended up with 1,200 people coming, and we made twice as much as we did at our $5 level. So our take from the event, including sponsors, was $47,000. So we're very pleased with it. 15,000 of that was sponsors, and this was probably 3 times as many sponsors as we had before. And we did turn down a Tesla sponsorship, so feeling like that was not the direction we wanted to go in, but otherwise we were delighted with all the attendees. So we had Marin Sanitary, Toyota Marin, Shamrock Cement Materials, the Larkspur Community Foundation, Corte Madera Women's Club, MacArthur and Love Real Estate Team, Brewster West Foundation, and our architects Nolan Pan, who were all sponsored. And they brought us, and Ahmed Moving, $16,000 in sponsorships. Yeah. And we had some in-kind donations from Nugget Market and Woodland Market. They donated all of the lunches for our drivers. And intriguing numbers, we sold 50% of our tickets 3 days prior to the event, which was a little nerve-wracking for everybody, considering actual ticket sales was $31,000. So that meant up until Thursday before the event, we'd only sold $15,000 in tickets. So it happened that way last year. So I think we're pretty confident that should we do this again, we're not going to panic when we don't have the numbers that we originally saw. And so how we ended up, of those VIP passes, which turned out you got 1 hour early access, you got close-in parking, You got breakfast, snacks, a private seating area, and we had 54 families take advantage of that at $150 a piece.
And 50 per family or per person?
Per family, up to a group of 5. And I did see that there were, because you could bring in up to 5 people, sometimes there were like 2 moms and 3 kids who all kind of banded together in order to take advantage of it. Families were up to 5 people for $75, and we had 188 people decide to do that. And then among individual ticket sales where you paid $25 a piece, we had 120. So I think some of those, we had appealed to our Friends of the Library base with an email saying, even if you can't come, if you could buy a ticket, we would appreciate it. So I would say of the 120, about 40 of those were our donors who did not come, but bought tickets after that email came out. So we consider it to be a great success. We plan to take $25,000 of that, and it will go to the library for children's books, and we'll be making the presentation of that check. We made a $5,000 donation to the Larkspur Park and Recreation Wrecking Crew. They're the nonprofit that helped out quite a bit in organizing the event and providing a lot of resources the day of. And then that left $17,000 for Friends of the Library to do with as we wish over this next year. So I don't think we'll do it again next year. We might be able to be talked into it again in 2027. We had done it previously in 23. So I think every 2 years. With the solar panels going into the Redwood parking lot, we would need to find a new location. Probably that empty lot next to Nordstrom's where the movie theater is would be a logical location. I suppose Piper Park, but I feel like that's problematic in terms of parking in so many events. It's too small. So I think that would be our best bet if we go forward with that in the future. So we're very pleased. Felt like it was a job well done. Barbara Friday approached us. She's a former president of Friends of the Library about doing it again. And she wanted to, and she was spearheaded all of this. And she wanted to be here tonight to present this information, but she is sick. So I said I would come and do it. But we owe a lot to Barbara as well for her efforts. That's it.
But one question for you,
Of course.
fantastic job, greatly appreciated. You mentioned Wrecking Crew and a
Yes.
donation to them. Are there any other costs when you put on the event, or is it all volunteer and donations?
We subtracted from that $47,000 figure was $1,600 in expenses, signage and postcard
modest.
printing. We made up bookmarks this year that had the promotion on it that the library could tuck into every book and we could hand out to people. So, yeah, we felt that the expense to income
That's
ratio was
understandable.
excellent.
What advertising did you do?
We did a lot of outreach to all of the schools in Marin County. So we would reach out to the school secretaries or the principals and with a press release, and they a lot of them promoted it within their publications. We also went to the Easter egg hunt and handed out information there. And
Great
that's part of
idea.
where the wrecking crew came in. We were at the farmer's market in Marin on the Saturday farmer's market in the children's area, handing out flyers. And Toyota of Marin paid for a full page ad in the Marin IJ to cover community announcement as well. So we had excellent coverage. And we had banners around town. You probably saw down by Trader Joe's, at the hub, there by the gas station and Tam racquetball. So those were our primary publicity. Oh, and we emailed all the people that came the last time. But I think because the price was so attractive, we had so many people come from the East Bay and South Bay This was a much more localized group, so I feel like it was much more mission-centric for the library. People just didn't come for the trucks. I think they were coming to support the library. We tried to be much more focused with that this time than we had before. This was fun. Damon was there. And Spencer Ann was there to talk about the library.
And Lucky was there.
Larkspur.
And Lucky
And Lucky was there.
Yeah. Still talking about.
Larky.
So I have to admit that I stopped Lucky when Lucky arrived, because Lucky was bundled up in a trash bag. And I said, what are you smuggling in that trash bag?
Oh.
And the person hauling the trash bag said, well, this is Lucky. I said, "Oh, Lucky can come in."
Yes, of course. And he did a great job.
He
Oh,
did.
and I forgot to mention, it was May the 4th, so May
right.
the 4th be with you. Damon was able to arrange through people who perform at the county fair. We had Darth Vader, Stormtrooper, Princess Leia, and the Skywalker Ranch Fire Department at the event as well. Yeah.
Amazing.
So it was double themed. in that respect.
Incredible.
It was really incredible. Thank you so much. I'm Ann Morrison. I'm with the Common Foundation. We're raising funds for the new library. And so I guess I'm just gonna give you guys a quick update. Do you get our newsletter that we send out? We do. Okay, so really good. So we just handed over $5 million to the council, two meetings ago. So that was quite a feat, quite fun to do. For an update for the landscaping, we already raised our $1 million. So it's fantastic.
Really
It's
good.
amazing. It's how, well, it's teamwork anyway. So, it's been really a pleasure, and we're, people would like their name on the donor wall. That's a lot of our fundraising, and or have their name on a community room or one of the rooms. So we've got a person interested to give us $250,000 for one of the rooms. We sent out a newsletter letting people know they want their name on the donor wall. It's $5,000. We have quite a few responses on that. I'm meeting with a woman on Friday who wants to donate $25,000. So it's just a great community gathering. It's just been incredible. So people are interested in continue giving money, not only to the building, to the landscaping. Now we're off to the programming. So I'm going to talk with Larry Langto on Sunday at 4 o'clock, and we're going to figure out how we should continue down the road. There's also another foundation called the Library Foundation, and they're also raising money for the library.
Can
So-
you repeat that for the microphone, what you're doing on Sunday afternoon? We really want to make sure it's in the minutes.
No, I don't think so. You never know. Anyway, we're trying to make it a group effort
You are
versus
doing,
a confused
Greater
separate.
synergy between,
we are
for a little
absolutely
town,
odd.
we have
I
a
am
lot
odd.
of people who love the library.
Yeah,
Just
so
wanna
why not
try to
make
work
it
together
more?
as much as possible.
So it's really great. I mean, it's just been such a delight to watch that building. I don't know if you pass
Yeah.
it all, 'cause we all do. We're on the timeline we're on. We have a board meeting next Monday, and Julian's gonna join us to go over the designs. And Damon's been wonderful coming to our meetings once in a while. So it's been a progress, you know, a constant letter writing, constant telephone calling. And a lot of people reaching out saying, I want to be involved. So it's excellent.
It
Uh,
really
one
is
thing-
excellent.
One comment is, the last time I think we were together as a group was the city council meeting that we were kind of involved in, giving a little bit of a status update of what the library board has been doing. And Julian did an unbelievable presentation on kind of just an update on the project itself. We saw some 3D renderings that I had never seen. But I thought that was just a fantastic, I actually took the YouTube minutes or whatever, the video from the council meeting, and sent it to a bunch of friends and told them kind of where we started with our update into the commons update and everything they're doing in the building. It was just unbelievable to see kind of all the behind the scenes and the layout and an update from Julian. I thought he did a really good job explaining everything. And then also to kind of see today, you know, what we're seeing in terms of actual like, you know, real life progress. So I just want you to know, I thought he did a really good job in that meeting.
He's doing a great job.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because of him, our timeline is completely where it needs to be right now. Yeah, now we've got people interested. There's some beautiful landscaping designs that we need some money for. We need like a curvature bench that's beautifully marbleized. And so we're trying to find someone that maybe wants to put their name on that. We don't want to go too crazy with names on chairs within the building. That was discussed.
That's what we have now.
That's what we got going on now. So we, the Commons Foundation, is not interested in naming these library chairs, but we are going to continue. We have trees to be named and rocks and boulders and, yeah, so the process will continue raising funds for the library. There's lots of creativity out there.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is wonderful. I think you'll be pretty well set when it opens.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Anne.
Excellent. Yeah.
Mentioned outside of touch trucks, we created a quiet zone. And we had two of the librarians, Chantal and Teresa, who came and joined us in that area, trying to make the event a little more library centric. So we had books about trucks, we had a big carpet that the friends had bought that kids could drive trucks on, trying to bring some of the library to the event, and bubble machines. And just in keeping with the theme, Park and Rec provided us with about 20 cones, and you could do ring toss on the cones. And Teresa was pleased enough with the event. She proposed that maybe we take this kind of little festival feeling and look at maybe doing, if there's any soft openings of the library, being able to bring back that kind of thing for children to be able to come and get a sneak peek at the library as well when we get closer.
Yeah, it shows the great power of the outdoor spaces this new library is gonna have.
Yes.
And just meeting people and having fun and connecting. So I think we'll be able to do something like that.
Right. Love it.
No,
All right,
Thank you very much.
we're gonna go back to agenda item 5, which is the director's oral.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you again to the Touch of Trucks, acknowledge all the work that that done. That was a great event. And also always thank you to the Commons. So thank you. And thank you to Andy. You made me feel so welcome when I came here and everything you brought. So hopefully we can replace you, but thank you. That also just with one of the other items, as you know, there is a board applicant now available, and that's going to run through, it's due on May 14th. And so we'll see, we'll get a new person on the board, and that'll be exciting. A little bit of sad news, at least for me, our circulation supervisor, Alessandra, is leaving. She's a library school student, and she got a job in a school library in San Francisco where she lives. So it's a better career trajectory for her. We currently have that position open, and it'll close May 22nd. And our first round of interviews will be June 3rd. This is the person who really is responsible for checking in all the books, handling all the materials, and making sure those 8,000, 9,000 items we circulate each month find their place to patrons on the shelf. It's a big job. It's pretty physical. I also wanted just to say we added a new electronic resource. You might have heard of Lingapi, which is a language learning resource that it integrates with video and Netflix and Disney Plus, and it's kind of AI generated. So you set up your profile and then it helps you learn. It's more for intermediate learners, and you can watch TV and it kind of guides you for whatever language you want to learn and helps track your progress. It's available commercially, but we've purchased one through our consortium at MarinNet. So
How does somebody access and experience that?
if you go to our website for databases, there's a link, and then you put in your library card and then create a user account with your email and a password, and you're ready to go.
Canopy. Very
But-
similar to Canada.
Yeah, it's pretty easy once you get there, and it's worth trialing out too and just seeing how it integrates. And there is a little more explanation there if you want to integrate it with your Netflix or Disney Plus account. Otherwise, they have TV shows, and they do have some things like short stories in there, but it is very interactive, and it kind of gives you kind of grades as you progress, and it has a lot of languages. So, and you can set your profile if you want to work or travel, or, you know, depending on what type of learning you want to do. So that's kind of exciting. And then lastly, just wanted to highlight, we're getting ready for our summer reading program, and we've got all the events planned, and we're kind of doing some of the final touches, but that's going to launch June 3rd. So you'll be seeing a little bit more on that. We do have a flyer out for the events, and we're gonna do the bingo card again. We're not 100% ready, but this is our theme's gonna be called Color Our World. And we're gonna have just a lot of fun things like puppet shows, reading clubs, and, you know, kind of the usual. This will be our last one probably in this building. And so as we go through it with the new building, we're going through those, you know, this is the last time thoughts, but that's okay. So I think that's all for my director's report, unless you had questions or comments I could.
I'm sure that you took me by surprise.
Oh,
there.
okay.
Did we have, go ahead.
Oh,
I was just gonna say, what happens if there is no replacement for Andy's role on the board?
that's a good question. We do have 2 potential applicants here today.
Okay.
I guess what they've done with other boards, it would be the city council decide, I guess they would extend the time it's open.
Yeah.
Until they find someone, and then probably still keep the terms at the same time.
Happy
And
a couple extra
we-
months if need be.
Oh, that'd be,
Cool.
and we do probably
It looks like we have
Yeah. I think-
at some
candidates.
point, we probably do need to, usually the chair gets elected in January. So we do probably need some meeting to go through the process for either the vice chair to take over or
Yeah.
figure that out.
I had one question on the reading program. Was it last year where they did a bit of a advertising campaign or kind of kickoff in the schools? Was that?
Yeah.
Wasn't Larky there? Have we done that? I hadn't heard.
Yeah. It's kind of with those schedules. I know Teresa's gonna go to St. Pat's, and I know Larky, I think it's the end of May, they're gonna be at Neil Cummings with Corte Madera. But I think some of those are getting finalized. That's one of those little details, but Teresa will be doing a roadshow at all the schools that we'll hear, and the Cove, also.
I love that whole carnival idea that you had. I mean, that would be a pretty cool, like, summer reading kickoff. Do something like that, like Piper Park
Or
Yeah.
or Dark Park,
or a dark park, yeah.
which is right across the street.
Yeah, I could talk to the friends with that. You know, my previous job when I did outreach with the bookmobile, we did things like the large Connect Four, Jenga games,
Yeah.
you know, all that sort of kind of interactive, fun, you know, learning. So we'll see what we could do. I'll talk to the friends.
If we need any help with making sure that we're including Basic in that summer reading tour, let me know.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I will. That's actually great. I appreciate that, because Teresa's had a hard time getting in there over the years.
Yeah.
Okay. This is technically in the county territory,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, it's a. I
but
feel
you have
like
large for kids.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think more importantly, it's not like there's a Kentfield library or another library serving
Yeah.
that community.
Mhm.
Yeah, there are lots of great kids there in Larkspur.
Yeah.
Yeah, proximity and
Right.
bikeability. Definitely, it's a good idea.
Good idea. All right, additional questions for Damon?
Is the outreach primarily focused on elementary school
Yeah,
as opposed to preschools or?
our summer reading is targeted really at the elementary kids primarily, although we welcome everyone. It's kind of zero and adults can participate, and we do have a teen component. But it's really primarily for those early elementary ages.
You're gonna do a bingo again?
We're gonna do the bingo, yeah, we're trying to mix it up a little bit. And then we also have, the teen advisory council's going pretty well. The last time, we set something up with the teen advisory council so someone could be president, vice president, and it was a little more official. And last time there was about actually 9 kids there, which is good for us. They did a craft program, but then they're kind of being empowered this next one in May. They're going to do a book club. So we're going to kind of talk with them a little bit more about how the teen summer reading and what they're interested in and make sure we get what they want because they're interested.
When is that happening in May?
The teens book club is May 17th, or Teen Advisory Council, but it's gonna be a book club essentially.
Saturday. On Saturday. This coming
Oh.
Saturday. Yeah.
Maybe I have
How many?
I might have the wrong date. Let me look.
How many people do you have on there?
The last one, there was more than I thought. There was actually like 9 people attended. The first one only had like a couple kids, but just really did outreach, and I think we're trying to also scheduling it at the right time. Thursday, May 15th, I'm sorry, is the Teen Book Club, Teen Book Club, not 17th. So I think it just takes that incremental work, to figure out when they're here and not scheduling it during ski week. That was one of, but so.
That's good, anything to propel that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's been such a hole for us, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
We've been trying to get the team interested and involved. So anything you can think of, asking them what it is they want. I don't want to say we will do it, but we will really look into it
Give them
because
ownership.
it's such, yeah.
I think too, to your point, like, if we can grow it a little bit ahead of getting to a new space, or a
Mhm.
little more space for programming.
Mhm. So that we just don't assume that they're all interested in robotic, for example, and then it turns out that what they want to do is knitting or vice versa. We really want to know what to do and not waste any time with them, because teens, you've got their attention, and then if you don't snatch it, you lose them.
Yeah, and I think we want to figure out where our niche is, being near those 2 schools, other activities, who are the kids interested in here? So that's a big part of it too, because there are other options besides the library here. So what do those kids who really want to be involved want?
Those, it's possible that the students who come are the ones who are not in programs or not interested in programs that they could do at school or after school, or not interested in sports, or if they play baseball all every afternoon, they're not really going to be available for this. So we need to find out.
San Francisco Public House, they have skateboard exhibition up right now, and the guy
Oh.
who organized it is from Marin, he's from Bolinas, and he did talks about it, and he might be really good to have come and talk at some point. Group of knucklehead
Yeah.
teenagers show up in Hartford.
Knucklehead Gen Xers,
And
I
he
guess.
considers himself very nerdy, but he's like
Yeah.
legendary in the
Is
skateboard
he
world.
a skateboard designer or?
No, he's written for Thrasher magazine for 20 years, but he actually has a PhD in architecture history, and he does walking tours based on skateboarding and mid-century modern art in San Francisco.
Wow.
I mean, the guy is just like through the roof
I'd
of
come with him. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a niche for
Isn't
sure.
that a niche? I mean, he's
He's got
brilliant,
street cred.
but he'd be really, he probably would come to do it. I should try to get hold of him or something.
Yeah, if you want to pass that
Yeah.
along.
My
He's really
son's second grade teacher, her son is Bailey in Nevada. He's a teenager and he's in a special skateboarding school in Bolinas.
Is that right?
And I
Oh.
wonder if it's related. I mean, he's like a pro skateboarder as a.
Yeah,
as a
maybe.
sports
I'm sure
teacher.
this guy
I'm sure that
might be the
there's some
same guy or
relation.
something.
Yeah, like he might be a teacher. like
There's
at
also the
school or
world's
something.
oldest skateboarder who lives in Bolinas, Floyd Kahn.
Okay.
Like, who did Shelter Press, if you know Shelter Press at all.
You mean he's older than me?
He's 90.
Oh, yeah, I'm not,
And he,
I'm not
he's-
there yet.
yeah, and he did the shelter part of the whole Earth catalog. He's somebody else who'd be fun to bring in. And maybe that age would build teams too.
Yeah.
Realize, man, there's a future out there. for me.
Well, and I think that this teacher's son would be happy, like she would be happy to have him participate in any way too, you know, like get his cohort of people.
That is really
Oh,
cool.
that would be, yeah, that would be, that's exciting.
Literary world and skateboarding
Yes.
is overlapping.
Yeah.
I love it.
You know, I'm curious for drawing teams in, which we haven't, you know,
So far.
we haven't been overwhelmed
Mhm.
with that yet.
Correct.
It's tricky to try to lure them for their own interest. I wonder if a program where teens could almost adopt a young buddy to help, because I know some things that happen in schools is, like when when new classes come in, the older class and the older
Oh.
kids adopt, like they have a buddy. And I wonder if there's a reading program version of that where a teen could get involved, not like, oh, this is cool, or maybe I love skateboarding or for any other reason, but they want to help like a young kid and like appeal to a big brother, big sister dynamic. I don't know if we've tried something like that or if that could work.
We could try it, yeah, because there's like a program at the county called Reading Buddies that's similar to that, to having like a mentoring aspect of it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's figuring out just the resource time, places,
Yeah.
coordinating it all. We do see here some tutoring going on,
Yeah,
you know,
nice.
with older kids. It's usually math or
Mhm.
something like that, but it's more independent. But if you gave them more structure, that we're being more inviting too, yeah.
Those are good ideas. I mean, anything, just see on the 15th what your teams are expressing, and I'd be curious to hear what they mention, and then we can,
Don't all the Redwood kids, and I know Hall has a minimal requirement, but they have to have volunteer hours.
10 hours.
That's where we see most of our teens come in, and that's their entree into this teen advisory, because they almost all of them, I would guess, have volunteered with us. And we're actually, right now, we almost get too many at the end of the year, because right now they're trying to get all their hours to fill up. So that's a great way to meet kids.
But if you had
Yeah.
that overflow of volunteer hours because they're trying to meet a requirement paired up with, like a reading buddy program or a tutoring buddy program, that would be a
Exactly.
great way to
Mhm.
Yeah.
The only-
kind of both
the-
sides and get more people involved.
The only thing is that the requirement is due at the end of senior year, and then they're off.
Then they're gone.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah,
If the requirement was, end of sophomore year, or due by sophomore year, we would have a little more time to really get them to be involved.
Having 9 teams, so that's good. That's as many as I've ever heard.
So thank you. And we did have also one of the teen volunteers put on an AI program here and wrote the curriculum. We kind of let him go and supervised it. And it was primarily his family and some seniors who were really new to just really, what is, I hear Chat GPT, what is it? They don't want to go in. And he did a decent, presentation one time. So I think there's also teen senior opportunities maybe also.
Great thought.
Yeah.
Go both directions.
Or even just like bring in your iPad for some seniors, like how do I get an ebook on there,
Yeah.
some.
That is always,
The basic tech support.
Mhm.
yes, that is always
It's
needed. I have a question
Oh.
regarding Alexandra, or mostly regarding the position that is being vacated by Alexandra. What would be the timeline to have such an important position filled?
So we've gotten, last I looked, like about 5 applicants already. It closes May 23rd. I'd want to look that up. It might be May 22nd. And the first interview is June 3rd.
Okay.
And so after that, we'd probably do the second interview June 9th, the next week. And then it'll probably be just depend a little bit if we find someone who's a fit and then their transition time needed to come to the job. So hopefully by the end of June, maybe July. That's the nice thing of being a small city. We can move on our HR pretty quickly if there's an opening, and we had the notice up, within the week she gave, notice, and she'll be here. Her last day is May 22nd. So she's trying to leave as clean as possible, leaving good documentation. So hopefully by the end of June or middle of July.
5 weeks. Position, it could be more work for the rest of the staff.
Yeah, and we only have 4 staff.
Right.
So it's so whenever you lose one person, it's pretty noticeable. And this was in the budget. We do have, as you know, some of you may or may not know Teresa, who's been longstanding librarian, will probably retire this summer. And she's been here 20, so that's going to be a big transition for the community. And she's telling people we don't know the official date, but this will, that Teresa actually extended her time a little bit because of Alessandra departing.
Why, well,
She has so much institutional knowledge. It
Yeah.
would be nice to have a long period of overlap just for her to train and pass that along.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of hoping. Once she kind of announces her official date, then we can initiate a process
Okay.
more formally. But it would be good because also she's unique in terms of, she does story time, the kids love her, but then she also goes to the TAM. So there's not very many people who can serve those two groups so effectively.
she did the book group,
Book group, yeah.
so she did a lot. She's a killer.
All right, anything else? All right, let's move on to agenda item number 6, business items. 6.1, collection development policy.
Okay, so the collection development policy, I wanted to frame it a little bit before we talked about it and what it is, and we probably haven't talked too much about collections here. So the collection development policy is the backbone for all the materials we purchase and acquire for the library. And it is physical books, it's ebooks, we have library of things. Libraries have had this collection development policy for a long time. To back up a little bit, we are part of a consortium called MarinNet that includes all the libraries in Marin County. And it's operated by a Joint Powers Authority. And as part of that Joint Powers Authority, there's certain agreements on what we purchase and what we agree to. And so one of the main drivers is, you might notice you can put holds on items, a physical. And so generally, as part of the JPA, if there's 5 holds on a book, we have to buy one. And this is usually the adult collection. And so there's about 1,500 items right now that have holds on it. And generally the children's books don't get holds unless it's, the super popular ones. And I say that to frame this, that most of our adult book budget goes to popular holds. And it's a pretty small budget. So the county, we rely a lot on the county to fill some of these holds. We still buy them. But when people are acquiring things, they could be coming from a lot of different areas. The county spends about 1.5 million on materials, and we spend about 30,000. And just again, proportion, when I was at Corte Madera 25 years ago, we spent 200,000 a year on books. And now we spent a lot less here. So I kind of framed that with our collection development policy because one, it's a budget issue and we don't buy as much, and some of the stuff in the policies, other libraries purchase a lot more and have more discretionary funds, and they'll do like initiatives to initiate, say, a collection to serve a certain group or so I just kind of wanted to frame that when we kind of go through this, that we're doing that. And then secondly, we're required to do this because the state of California passed a law called the Freedom to Read Act. And that's the tenets in that. So that's one of the big drivers why those, why we're coming to you today is the state law. Otherwise, we probably would have kept this the same. But that being said, I did do a major revision of it, because it was a little outdated, for it. So if you can see, I'm sorry, I only made one copy, but,
Sure.
you can share, you can see what we're talking about here.
Maybe you can, I have it on my.
Oh, do you?
can
Okay.
Do that one. Too.
Thank you.
So kind of here, and this also supports when we try to do new things, like when we started the Wonder Books or the video games or anything like that, or trying to do some new initiative. So here, kind of, I'll just go over it real quick and then kind of maybe answer any questions, concerns, comments. The first part's really why we're doing this, and I sent this to the state of Cal librarian, just said, are we on track with this before bringing it to you? And so the big thing you see there are the enumerated points. The collection meets the broad and diverse interests of the community and respects both library autonomy and their specific community needs. 2, the public library serves as a center for voluntary inquiry and dissemination of information and ideas. And 3, library material should be provided for the interest, information, and enlightenment of all people and should present diverse points of view in the collection as a whole. So that's kind of, the California part, and we talk a little bit about being a Marinette there. And then we kind of have, I tried to break this out a little bit so it was just easier to read and with more bullet points. Last one was kind of more detailed. So you kind of see the basic goals there. We want to support literacy, education, lifelong learning, culture, information. I won't read it all. And you kind of see typical selection criteria there with, relevance, quality. One of the things is diversity, inclusion. We want different ideas. And so you'll see, especially in children's books now, representation being a big thing for books. So people and kids can see themselves in books. So that's something I think that's been shifting in the last few years in libraries. And you'll see that in our children's books collection. And then you kind of see a few things like authority, accessibility, format, local interest. One thing I would highlight, I put in here, we get maybe weekly someone who self-published their book who wants us to buy it. And so San Anselmo has a little hard for us. So I kind of have in here, we won't add them unless there's a compelling reason, because we do have actually, some significant authors who live in Marin County. We will add those, but kind of our demarcations, if you self-publish it, we might need some reviews or just some more information because we do have limited space. So we have a few ideas on how to help self-publish authors going forward, but that's something real specifically called out there. And then kind of other things like you would think: currency, popular demand, cost budget. And we always take patron suggestions. People are at the desk, do you have this? Often we do have it, or we're going to purchase it if it's a bestseller. And then our formats, we have print, we have ebooks, and we have non-print materials. And then this is the library of things, which is, you might remember the telescope,
Right.
the puzzles, and those sort of things, which are becoming kind of popular. Things you would only use once, and it makes sense to, renew it or introduce something, and seeing if you really like it and if you want to buy it, basically. And then going into collection maintenance and weeding, this is the one thing I really want to highlight here for the board. The new library is only going to be able to hold 20,000 volumes. Right now we have about 40,000. So we will need to deaccession, and we are in the process of this, half our collection. And this also goes back to my point earlier about our budget being low comparison. The other larger libraries used to are, if they buy a book, they have to remove a book because they're so full and they can purchase so much. We haven't really had to do that here over the last few years. So we have books that haven't when I ran the first list, there was one that hadn't been used in 20 years. And then we have had a lot that haven't been used in 3 to 5. And so what we also want to do is make sure people can do it, but we're trying to provide access to materials. So if other libraries have it through Link Plus, we can get it for you, but we may not have the shelf space for it. So we're going through a process now of kind of getting rid of those books, and we send them to a place called Better World Books. You can't recycle books because the covers aren't recyclable. So you can, but you have to ship them away to a special place in Sacramento. We'll do it. We did that at the county. So I just so to learn that we were reading and being mindful of that. And then we have budgeting. That's kind of you heard me complain about that a little bit. Gifts and donations. We don't get people donate a lot of books here, but we don't add a lot of them. A lot of times they'll put a sack full of books out front, and we just don't have the space for it. If we had a larger facility, it actually wouldn't be a problem, but the book has to earn its shelf space. And at the county, it was, if it hadn't been really used in a year, unless it was significant, like historically, or for some reason, we usually got rid of it.
So when people do leave books or try to donate them and they can't be placed on the shelves, is it the library's responsibility then to send them to the recycling?
We end up having to do that because we would rather not have people donate it, and we discourage it.
Yeah.
And we do have a place where you can, like, there's a Friends bookstore in Novato or across the street at St. Pat's will take them. St. Vincent de Paul was taking it for a while, but
This Book Passage still have that room. I think they sell all those books there too.
they sell they do, but usually people don't donate books that sell.
Oh.
Is the problem is
Like
it's
textbooks or
yeah, like
something.
textbooks or it's moldy, or
Yeah.
every once in a while we do add, if someone finished their bestseller, we'll add that to the collection and get holds, or if it's new, or replace it. So we do it, but we do get that's very rare. So we kind of discourage donations. We'd rather have a cash gift and purchase new materials. I mean, it's a little pretentious, but and then also so that's kind of the gifts. And then you see there the selection for children and adults. This tends to be, I don't know if you've seen in the library world comments and challenges, they tend to be with the children's book or the young adult collection and in the placement of it. So often a review might result in a book being placed in an adult section away from children. That's never happened here. There hasn't been a challenge here in my time. But this kind of gives a little reason about the age appropriate content, and you want to have it for reading level and ability to understand story and a lot of different reasons. The young adults want to be separate with their books, so they have their own space. And that kind of goes into where we place certain materials and where we do. We do have in here a concern regarding library materials. We do have a forum where people can do requests for consideration. I've probably done about 10 of them in my career. My last one was probably in 17, where someone was at South Novato and they complained that a dog, one of the books on dogs in the 636, the image of it eating a bird was too violent. And so we, read the book, read the review, and it was an old book that probably should have been weeded because it was from like the 80s and it wasn't really the content, but we ended up removing the book. We kept the book from the challenge, but we actually removed it later because it was old and irrelevant. We had better books, that sort. Had Spaceballs challenged once, the movie. So it's just, there's these stereotypical ones, but then they come here. Again, never here though. No one's ever formalized here. But one thing I did add in this policy that some other libraries are doing is you need to be a Larkspur resident to challenge. Because what was happening in a lot of libraries is someone in a different location would we'll still listen to you, but to go through a formal process of the book. so we are supported by Larkspur tax funds, so it's up to the citizens to really, I think, make the complaint.
And is this, um, something that we would like to be happening, or is it something that is, legal, that we can actually put, that you have to be a Larkspur resident to, does
You-
it have any value?
A lot of other libraries have done this. Sacramento led the way because they were getting so many challenges, because it's super time consuming if you have a small staff like ours. And if we had like a challenge of a book every, 2 or 3 a day, it'd be hard to process them all.
Right. It opens the doors to anyone from anywhere to just decide to target a library and just pilfer its shelves and challenge. I understand that. I just want to make sure that by saying that only people living within the Larkspur service area is something that is supported legally, and that we're not having wishful thinking, and that this will be challenged.
I could check on that, and make sure that is. Other libraries, I haven't really talked with our council about it, so we can do that.
But it's not the straw protection that anybody can blow out of the water just by saying, you can't do that. I mean, it's perfect.
Yeah, I don't believe it's gone through a legal process, so there might be a little ambiguity, I would guess, at this point to it, if it is legal.
So it might be
But we
more
could check.
deterrent, unless we have somebody who truly knows whether it stands or not, and really wants to mess with our shelves.
Yeah, I wonder if it hinges more on if someone's a library member as opposed to, the boundaries of where they live, right? Because there's like this concept of, will they actually be harmed by it through the library?
I don't think there's a difference between a library member, as in a library card holder,
Right.
and a resident, because you do not need a card to use the library. You just can't take a book home, but you can come in and read,
Yeah, that's
open any material you can in here. It's,
And you would be funding our library even if you didn't have a library card
right.
through the city's taxes. So,
Real membership. Well,
no, it's good. No, it's a good to be aware of, because you don't, better to talk about that now. That's why we're gonna get this. So it does a little quick thing on there, and just, we should review this every 3 to 5 years, just to make sure it's up to date. I couldn't find which one was officially approved, our last one. I think it was one, I don't know, anyway. So just something you should probably do and reflect, and then kind of there, I have a little few concluding comments, about the collection, so.
So would language, I know that we have books in different, at least in Spanish, that would be reflected in the diversity and inclusion, where material should reflect diverse perspectives, culture, and voices.
I think that would be for us at Larkspur, how we would use the Spanish collection in that way.
So can
That
you-
one was purchased by a grant 10 years ago and has never been refreshed or purchased with additional materials. So the use is not that great, versus other locations in Marin have infused it with a lot of money, and but that is where that collection, I think the diversity and inclusion to try to make, because if you come here on a Friday morning when we have story time, Spanish is probably one of the bigger languages spoken in our library at that time when it's not full. So we want to also, beyond the diversity, I think a lot of it's inclusion, so people feel like they're part of the library.
So could the word language or languages be added somewhere after diverse in that sentence? Diversity, inclusion, material should reflect diverse perspective, culture, languages, and voices. just to make sure. that we-
yeah, I think that's a reasonable yeah, we can do
just
that.
To make sure that we, and
Cause that also lets us as emerging collections, come up. Like what, some libraries have Russian, some have French, so it kind of tries to reflect the
the
local community.
Right. And
So
as you
language-
said, on Friday morning, there's a lot of Spanish being spoken, so that might be a little flag for us to say, well, maybe we could look into this beginning Spanish collection and find a
Small.
teen volunteer, want to look at it and assess it and give us a little report on what can be weeded and what can be added and how it could be made more.
Mm.
'Cause I do remember that a few years ago, there were reports that the Spanish collection was in use by the nannies. They would just, the women who came with the children for story time would take books home for their own children at home from our library. Is that they're either
Yeah.
used, I don't know if we can track how many of these books can come and go.
Well, we just got, with the grant, the children's books do get a lot more use than the adult collection. But right now we don't have a budget to purchase new ones, so it still is that existing. Like when you hear our friends group and support, that might be something, throw $1,000 at to, refresh it, if it seems to make sense.
But it might be,
Mhm.
no, let's just, I know we're digressing from the true object of this, but just gonna say that and then I will let it go. It's just to take we make the 50 books in Spanish we have, maybe find someone who can just review it, assess it, discard the one that are no longer relevant. Someone who obviously is fluent in Spanish can read it and assess it, and then go from there, and maybe find a resident who is willing to refresh our collection, to just make it, maybe it doesn't move because it's the same books, and how many times can you read the same book in 1 year? So anyway, if we could just start with this and add languages.
Yeah, I think yeah, no, that's good. I think we're also too, really, and we should support when there's need, but like Corte Madera has a pretty large Spanish collection and they also have, bibliotheca. They have bilingual staff, and then we're close to pickleweed. So we also want to work with our partner to figure out where we fit in, also making the patrons feel welcome. But I think we are kind of surrounded by a couple libraries who are doing it better and more consistently, and they can support it better. But it does need a review and seeing who can, provide it. And if we did have someone Spanish language, we could be more engaged with that
Well,
community versus smiling and,
And
trying
given
to
that
help.
we are short on space for the next library, we want to make sure that whatever number of books we have in any languages are truly books that are relevant and important and will be picked up by somebody.
Yep.
We just cannot keep them because they are our token Spanish shelf.
And the collection, if it's in someone's home, that's the best place for it. So we can have a bigger collection. If people are using it, then we don't have to warehouse it.
Yeah.
So we want it, active and alive
That's
in the
great
home.
point. You mentioned going from 40,000 down to 20,000 because of the space limitation. Does that factor in that some portion of the collection is always out in circulation?
Yeah, I don't actually know. I've done linear feet of like what we hold, but I've never gone in and figured out. Most of the new stuff is all in circulation, so we're circulating about 8,000 to 10,000 items a month. And so most of those aren't on the shelf, and then they'll go through their life and then return after they've been read for a year or two.
I'll ask it this way. Is the capacity 20,000 titles for shelf space? And then do you have to stay limited to that number in case they were all returned? Or could you actually carry more knowing they're gonna be in the field?
We could carry more if we know, so like if we had, I guess, a bigger budget and we were all buying like the newer books, our circ would go up and they would go.
Yeah.
And so really, it's just holding the 20,000 items.
Mhm.
You know, if we had 40,000 and 20,000 were in people's homes,
Yeah,
then
I'm all for purging and disassectioning, new word for me. in this.
the
Little-
accessioning
little
meeting.
Very specific library. But I like the idea of having as large as possible, but relevant quality. I mean, all the criteria here are excellent. Just occurred to me, perhaps to count on some portion always being insert out of the shelves, keep the shelves full, and, it'd be a good problem to have. Oh, we got too many good things, and now some are coming back.
Get a lot of
Yeah,
bookmarks.
And the new library is gonna have actually better display shelving, so it's actually hard to define like the Spanish collection right now. Where the new library, you'll be able to see everything and it won't be as cramped, so I think that's also gonna help.
Great.
Well, a comment to follow up on Mel, what you say about the evaluation of non-English makes a ton of sense. I would suggest that the selection criteria that you've laid out here are really excellent.
Mhm.
To, include that that's applied to all languages.
Oh, that's
And
good.
if so, then that achieves what
Right,
you want,
right.
because this criteria
Mhm.
is fantastic.
Mhm.
And it'd be great to, connect with Cordillera and other libraries to see what their core Spanish titles would be for that specific
Oh.
population. But you guys do
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Actually, that's a good idea, because we could actually run the list, but the core is actually a good way to look at it, because we may not be able to get everything, but these are the
Small enough
essential,
to go.
Be
Yeah.
manageable, relevant.
yeah. And they have Spanish language selectors,
Yeah, encourage
So-
that population. What do they want to read?
yeah. And
Suggestion.
yeah, that would be good.
We do remember that we can't be everything to everybody, but whatever we have, we just don't want to hold it because we have it. And we want to have a few of, and when I say language, it could also be topic. And we don't want to have math books because we want to have math books.
Right.
We need to have math books that are going to fly off the shelf.
I agree.
This is where our math shelves are empty.
And this probably makes sense, but, the fiction books have a much longer shelf life, and so do the children's books, where a lot of the nonfiction that just doesn't, it runs its course after a few months. Some is more evergreen, maybe some of the psychological or history books, but, some of the political or current bestseller, they just, they lose time, they're not relevant anymore.
Yes.
Geography constantly changing.
Yeah. So,
Um,
Atlas.
yeah.
Oh, that's my favorite. Damon, one thing struck me around point two, library objectives and goals, which was, and I thought it's excellent how it's laid out. I think of the programming, which are the experiences that people can attend, as really a core part of how the library provides its literacy, education, lifelong learning. And I was wondering if this policy is more about the library collection objectives and goals, or would you include what you provide access to is also the experiences and programming?
I think
This is about the collection.
This is specifically about the collection, but when you said that point, what I think I might want to, I think it might make sense to put a programming bullet of some sort in there.
Sure.
Because what the collection does do is support the programming, often through book clubs,
Yeah.
or other initiatives that we might want to start doing, like our seed library was something we pulled together because some people were interested, like in the Habitat Garden and everything. And that's really a programming collection. We're not really spending any money on it. There also might be something like I kind of wanted to do like a one book, one Larkspur. Like, we don't want, like, we have the community, you'd want to get a committee of people and like pick a book and, something that really represents the city, and have maybe the author come or affiliated programming and talks with it. So I think the collection can drive programming.
I mean, our programming has been such a positive thing to highlight as well, right? It's like, if we have just a ton of circulation of a certain topic, right, then that can fuel what that programming is.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because, we do a decent amount of travel books, and so we haven't had that much travel programming, but I beyond the space trip program, but there's got to be interest in travel, here too. So that's a good point. Look at the collection for what to provide for programs.
The next question I have, under 3 selection criteria, the final one, patron suggestions. When I read the verbiage here, I didn't quite follow it. I think I get the idea, but I'd suggest maybe just revisit how it's worded.
Okay, I might have gotten a little too librarian there. Yeah, maybe I could just say, the library doesn't own the title. Suggest one,
And
just suggest
new things to
something,
get.
yeah, I think something,
Right.
they don't have, I was trying to, I got Phil stuck on there, cause it's a little
Yeah.
easier for us if they
Yeah.
can go through the catalog, but I think it is a little too librarian. So I can revise that one to a little bit. If the library doesn't own the title, suggest it.
So
Perfect.
only
Yeah.
card holders can suggest something too. As opposed to what we were talking about earlier, when it was residents of Larkspur who could object to a book. Suggestions can only be made by card holders.
Yeah, cause you do have, and this is part of our system, last time I got bogged down in this, is to suggest a title in the catalog, you have to log in with your library card. And so you're identified, because we were trying to prevent self-publishers and maybe people outside the state suggesting it. But, really someone can just come to the desk and say, hey, or send an email, I don't think we should tie them to, force, that's the preferred method, but,
I think
We could,
yeah.
we could be consistent and say residents, Larkspur residents. And they would have to come.
I think because I would say that in Marin that we're so close, I think if we did just Larkspur, it might get a little confusing.
I see.
Cause some people don't know if they're in Larkspur or the county,
Right. Mhm.
and it just,
Kentfield, who doesn't have a library.
Correct, yeah.
But they are a card holder here, they're not a Larkspur resident.
Right. I mean, it's the Larkspur service area technically, right, is like how I think you referred to it, but still, I think it's
I
confusing.
see. We're hitting all sorts of geographical
And-
walls.
and probably in reality, if someone really had a complaint and they lived in Kentfield, I would probably list them, some closer and, seeing kind of how that goes and the policy, but it's almost hard to write that in a policy. To
It's-
Kentfield, but Rosk you can't, and so Fairfax.
Okay, so the library doesn't have.
But I think we do actually want more suggestions. So actually, when I see that having the card isn't a little impediment, we want to hear what people are reading, what they're thinking, even if we do own it. Especially at the desk and through email, we just,
Yeah, get those little teenagers to suggest them.
yeah, that's a good point. That a teenager's not going to log in to the catalog and
Can
suggest.
people email suggestions?
They do to library, it tends to be the self-publishers, but we would, but some of our more traditional, daily patrons they'll call up and say, do you have this? Can you put a whole, they're very comfortable suggesting. It's almost so informal, it doesn't even seem like a suggestion in this, like a policy.
Why don't we say card holders can suggest the purchase of a title not already owned by the library through the library catalog?
Or just, through, patron. And then I think maybe just get rid of this library catalog
Okay. So
aspect.
so patron can suggest the purchase of a
So just-
title not owned by the library.
Period. And then as we talk to people, we can say, depending who they are, direct them to the catalog and if they want, that's kind of, some people suggest a lot. Or, there'll be one person who does that, so that it's better for that, if it's a one person who suggests a lot to do the catalog, I think, but.
My last thing that I saw was, the number 4 seems like it was skipped over, this numbering from 3 to 5. Just so that people don't think they're missing something.
Oh.
that something's missing.
Thank you.
We're missing a page.
Oh, that's a good,
Good.
no, it's good.
I know
I
you're
would-
testing it.
Yeah, I know.
Good.
I know when I was probably, no, you get the star today. No, I'll renumber, so I'll renumber them. I think when I was working on it. Good catch.
The 11.
Oh, the 11, oh,
But if you were gonna renumber, I think.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good catch too. Okay, I'm gonna really look at my numbers and. Sorry about that. Okay,
I guess it's weird.
yeah.
But Damon,
It's
you did such a good job at structuring and
Yeah,
bulleting
that's
it.
Yeah.
It was really readable and clear. In fact,
Oh.
it's one of the more interesting things. It's really like, how does the library operate? Especially the
Mhm.
selection criterion process. I thought it was excellent.
Great.
So-
the-
so- So I could revise this, and do you want to approve it the next kind of,
No, we can, I just have one
Oh.
question that, where do the selection of the thing, of the,
it's still kind,
it all applies to it, like the telescope, it's all of the authority would apply to the next telescope.
right, so the telescope for us would be relevant, it has quality. It's, not a junky telescope, that kind of thing, cause that's something that's a space concern.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we don't wanna be just a dumping ground.
But then, okay, that would be library of things. All of the selection criteria applies to the print materials, the digital materials, the non-print media, and the library of things.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and then curiosities.
That's very opening, and the rest
Yep.
of us, and everybody have donations.
And then, do you wanna vote on approving it, or I can revise it and,
I'm okay with, voting to approve it with the revisions we just talked about.
Okay.
Kelly wants to move in.
And
So I'd accept that as a motion, second.
okay,
Motion to
Everyone in
approve.
favor? Everyone in favor?
oh, thank you. And then I'll post this on the website, and the last thing in your packets, just was from the state of California, kind of explaining what was required.
Right, before the deadline to send it to the state.
It has to be approved by December 31st. So we're way ahead.
Do you wanna move to 6.2, the budget
But
update?
yeah, so we had the budget hearing last Wednesday, at 10 o'clock in the evening. And it went pretty well. So Dan presented the library budget to council. There was a Marin IJ article about it, which summarizes it up. The one thing I wanted to make this board aware of is it's a very tight budget year for the city. But there's not gonna be cuts, but to offset any cuts, the city is requesting that we use the Zimmer Fund. And so the Zimmer Fund is something I believe is in 2015 or 2016. The Zimmer family passed, sold the house, and they gave a third of the money to Mill Valley, a third to Cortum Dare, and a third to Larkspur. It's approximately $650,000. And so the city of Larkspur took it and has been kind of, investing it and having the interest. They made some like 150,000 to the new project. So the interest this year is about 15,000. So the city would like to use that and use that for basically our adult book budget.
Use the 15,000.
Yeah. And so we have 20,000, and so I think some of the small details will work out. And then the toucher trucks would be our children's budget. So last year we spent 10,000 on touch trucks, or on children's books. We'll probably purchase a bunch of new books for the children at the new library and kind of work that out. So we'll probably spend a lot more on children's books this year than we normally would. So that's kind of one of the big budget updates. Our budget will be the same essentially, and we still have a frozen position, which probably once the library opening date's closer, the city will do kind of a mid-year adjustment to figure out the extra cost related to operating a building, like we'll have a fire system, things like that. It'll cost probably 25% more to operate that building than this building. So those costs will get kind of incorporated as well. On the state and fed, just, you might have seen some state and national news. So IMLS, which is the federal library department, I guess, they're kind of going through a different process, and that affects our state budget. And so what that comes down to Larkspur is there's a lot of uncertainty at the state budget level. But what it probably means for us, if it were to be fully cut, is they provided our $10,000 for ebooks. So we would lose that. They provided the money for like the zip book project we did. And they provide kind of our $1,000 a year for staff training, and they provide the infrastructure for staff training. And they also provide the New York Times online for the public, the state does. So those are probably all going away. And so, but it isn't certain yet. So there's still some kind of final thoughts. And so we'll have to figure out at the Marin level, we could probably like get the New York Times again if we wanted. We've gotten quotes on that. So we'll have to kind of see what happens at the state level. We're so fortunate to have the Friends, the foundation, and those will probably be the groups that can help supplement some of these losses. But like with the collection development in our consortia, what it makes us, we can't purchase ebooks at the level of the other libraries purchase. So you'll see if you look at ebooks or some books that, it might be a year before you get it. So that's kind of where the budget is at.
What's the total that might go away if it was all cut? What's the total?
The state library budget is 15 million. So it's actually not that big, and it's a bigger hit for like small and rural libraries. We're small, but we're not rural. And they're a lot more reliant, for their internet access and some of those larger things. They have like teen initiatives. For us, the ebooks would be about 10,000, and then however it's hard to calculate what the New York Times would be. And then in some ways it's hard to calculate, like the zip books was a one-time, they do a lot of $5,000 grants. And so that's like where our Spanish collection originated from. We got it goes from the federal to state to us. And like the Spanish was a $5,000 grant. And there's a lot of like $5,000 grants they do. So we probably there probably wouldn't be any of those opportunities in the future. But nothing drastic that we like completely rely on. Probably the like worst case scenario, just because we're talking here and we don't know what'll happen. Our internet is provided by something called Scenic, which provides schools and libraries internet access at a discounted rate, subsidized by the FCC. Colleges, most libraries get it. We just put in a new line. There's a lawsuit going around now that is trying to say the FCC can't distribute money to another party like Scenic, and that they could only distribute it directly to the end recipient. So if that lawsuit were to prevail, where the FCC had to directly give us the money and not go through someone like Scenic, that would probably have a big impact on our internet costs. Because we get it through Marin. It's kind of complicated. I almost have to draw it out. But if that lawsuit were to come to fruition and the FCC could distribute the money two states. That would probably be our biggest impact in some of these things kind of being discussed currently. So, but our internet right now is about 7,000 a year, and we'd probably just have to, the city would have to find money to, because we need it. We need it.
We are.
And they paid, last year, they paid the grant, they paid for all of our equipment. We just got upgraded last year. And that equipment was like 20,000, so that was a federal, essential grant that got paid, but probably going forward, when it needs to be replaced in 4 years, we have to see.
So if I understood correctly, the city budget, the budget that the city allocated to the library is same amount as last year. Some of the funding will have to come from the Zimmer Fund instead of being from the coffer of the city. And some of it will be from the Friends, as usual. And there is a lack of grants that we will, some grants that we would have received from the state are not gonna be coming through, so we will have less money next year.
That, yeah, if that's a good summary. The state ones aren't finalized, but they're highly probable. So that's the only caveat. Yeah.
So whatever the,
So our budget isn't being cut, but we're relying on the Friends and
foundation.
the Zimmer to close the gap.
And that Zimmer Fund is designated for those three constituencies, libraries, those were
Yeah.
for cities, the federal libraries.
Yeah, they are, they could only really be used for the library.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah,
Just on the state funding, have any of those dollars already been spent?
it's a, no, yes and no, I guess it depends. For the most part, it is everything that's gonna be budgeted really that would be an impact. For some libraries, the funding kind of stopped midstream in January and February when some of the confusion happened. And some of those money, not us, but other California libraries didn't receive their full disbursement.
Yeah, some of those IMLS things stopped immediately, it seemed. Like we received, where I am, we received a National Endowment for Humanities grant, it just got terminated before they expired. They just stopped in midstream.
The building's not impacted at all. So that's from a grant from a few years ago, so that one it won't be touched. He's good news for
But it's all the operational, all our programs and our resources and our collection that will be impacted.
Right,
So we
yeah,
will be relying even more than usual on the Friends fundraising and the foundation cutting checks.
yeah, and once we get closer to opening, I'm just anticipating there's gonna be a lot of smaller things we wanna purchase that aren't in the plan, and we go, oh, we need some little signage, or we need some new early literacy support, or bean bags, or some of those kind of things we kind of get down there, which the Friends of Foundation will need to hopefully stay wherever the Commons lands with their final numbers.
It's nice that we're not as reliant on federal grants that come through the state library,
Yeah, that would be,
like the rural
That'd be-
libraries.
yeah, some of those places are gonna be devastated.
Wow.
Right, but still, we just
That's-
know our Friends and the foundation rely on the community, and the community is gonna be squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, because we're not the only one who are gonna be asking.
We're a good company.
And I think that's where like the touch trucks and our friends group are so fortunate that they're doing innovative things to raise funds. They're not just saying, oh, woe is us. They're trying to, provide something and, build community. I think that's the way you need to raise funds. For us.
Also, and this is just experience I have with another board that I'm on right now. These very specific cuts that are a result of what's happening at the federal level have actually been very motivational on the development side.
Yeah.
The development officers have been able to go out to the community of
Love that
donors and
goal.
say, we're gonna miss this piece of the budget
Yeah.
because, and because everyone understands the
Yeah.
political environment, they're willing to fill those gaps. It's very, like, you may have someone who raises their hand to say, I'll provide the New York Times subscriptions. 'cause,
Yeah.
You know,
For rallying
that's
cry.
important.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's very concrete and specific because there are things that already exist.
True.
And the timing with the new building is opportune also.
Right,
as-
yeah.
as
That's gonna
just
generate a lot of
something that's
energy.
right in your face.
That's
Yeah,
true.
exactly.
All this is true, but a budget that relies on the goodwill of the patrons and the community, we know that it's a stopgap, that just the community shifts, the pressure changes, it's good for a few years, but we cannot only rely on that.
Yeah, and we're one of the few, like, I don't wanna say the only Sausalito doesn't, we're the only, us and I think Sausalito are the only ones who don't have a, parcel tax, dedicated parcel, so that'd be my dream, so. Or some dedicated funding source that's,
Reliable.
yeah.
Any other comments on 6.2 budget?
I would say there's a nice summary. 2 weeks ago, there's a nice Marin IJ article about the budget cuts on the state and federal level from the Mill Valley perspective. If you were interested to look there more, and there was another one that kind of summarized the budget presentation on Sunday. I also mentioned our goals of the collection this was in the article, the collection development policy, moving the collection, and then the one you might just saw for the budget is we're gonna work on a programming plan. So kind of some of the ideas talked here, what I'm gonna formalize that in discussions with you in the future.
All right. 8.0 future agenda items. Does anyone have any future agenda items?
Well, we do need to, elect new president in June,
Oh, yeah,
new chair, sorry.
new chair.
Like new chair.
Larky's agenda,
It's social calendar.
his social calendar.
It's pretty open.
Travel coordinator.
Parade.
Oh, yeah, parade.
Well, we don't really have,
I mean, I just didn't know if there's people are gonna do something this year.
we can always
Oh.
put it on the agenda.
That's true.
I mean, we've had some energy behind the library.
Yes. Yes, we should definitely talk about it,
Yeah.
I think.
What's the date on that?
For this, this is our draft flyer. So the summer reading program will be June 3rd through August 2nd.
Okay. So that'll be before our next meeting.
And so I could go into a little more detail
Yeah,
on this
I
at
wanna
that
put that on
meeting
the
for the summer reading.
Summer reading update. Good one.
And just because we're here to the other one, I don't know if Ann will come, I could just kind of give it a little update with the building.
Yeah.
So
That's a
kind of
great idea.
right now, we're kind of looking at some furniture, and so maybe just a
Building
general.
update.
I'd suggest a building update is a permanent topic, because it's moving quickly, it's always interesting until it's, open.
That's good.
Do
And no,
we want to, continue some type of conversation about communication and especially getting the various groups together? Just, having another open house or open meeting, especially if we think that this budget year we will be relying on them more. We had that in October,
Sure.
when we had all the groups
Groups.
coming.
yeah, we
If we
still,
can talk about that in June, maybe we can get them to come in October.
I think we should definitely put that as an agenda item, because I think, to your point, if July and August are gonna be tough to get everyone together, so
Yes,
Yeah,
it'll be a good September, October again.
yeah.
I think that was part of what we did last time, is saying, hey, we need to make this consistent.
yes, yeah.
I think that's a good
So-
agenda.
so-
And we were pretty close. It just kind of,
Yeah.
and then we might have, Anne mentioned she's talking with the foundation this
Yeah.
week, so
Yeah.
that might give some
I like
energy
that
for
idea.
something.
That's a
Yeah,
good one.
we started something last year in getting all the groups with
Yeah,
us.
I thought that was successful.
So let's
Yeah.
just
All right,
put that.
Okay.
We have those agenda.
Yeah, that seems like a good one for June.
Any other future agenda item? All right, on to 9, next meeting date, we have June 9th, I believe it is on
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And that works for you, Andy?
I hope I'm maybe in the thick of some baseball, but, off the top of my head, I think I'll be good.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll have it on the field. It's
All-star.
Yeah, we could
All-
be where you are.
That's all-star season, so
What do you want to talk about moving it?
no, I think that's gonna work, all
No, but
things.
moving
David.
it,
Okay.
changing the time, making it earlier.
I don't think we can meet before 6 legally.
So-
TBD on that one, I think I should.
Okay.
It'd be unfortunate for me to ghost you guys in the last.
Right before you extend your term.
Or zoom in with the baseball.
There you go. All right, does anyone wanna make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved. So motion.
Yeah,
Second.
second.
All right, so meeting is adjourned at 7:39.
Perfect.